If you want to learn how to tween the camera to a part while focusing on a different part, watch this video and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Welcome to Roblox Snippets. Before we get into the coding part of this, there's a couple of things that we need to create. So the first one, the thing that we'll create, we're going to use a button to trigger our animation. So come over to Starter GUI and we'll add a Screen GUI, and inside of our Screen GUI we'll come down and click on Text Button, and then click on Text Button and we'll add a local script to the button. Alright, and before we move on, we'll just make our text button a little bit more attractive. So we'll come down to anchor point in the properties and we'll change this to be 0.5 to move these into the middle. So the anchor point will now be in the middle of the label, and so you can see what's happening as I'm going. I'll change the position now. So if we scroll down to position, and we will change the X position in the scale to be 0.5 in the middle of the screen, and then the Y in the scale, we'll change this to be 0.8. Alright, so now you can clearly see our button and the changes that are happening. Coming just back up to the top again, let's change the background color. Now you can pick whatever color you like. I'm simply going to make mine black, and I'm then going to change the border color. We'll brighten that up, and I pick a red and change the size of the border to be 5. And then let's move down through our properties again and right down to where we have our text, and I'll change the text color for a start, move it over, and you could pick, I might make this yellow, and I'll bold this, and then we'll change the text just to say play, because that's all we want to do in here. And if we scroll down a bit more, click in the text size and just slide the slider up till it looks good for you, and we've got our button. Alright, so that doesn't get in the way at the moment, if you want to hide your GUIs, you can come up to View and just turn off over here the UI visibility while we're working in the workspace. Okay, so in our workspace now we want to create a part. And we'll change its color to be, say, red, and all we need to do is come down to Anchored and turn it on, and we'll change its name now to be the Look At part. Alright, so when we're animating our camera, the camera is going to focus on this part as it moves. Alright, and we'll move it, so if you click on the Move tool and then just slide it off into the distance, not too far, just however far you think is good. And then we're going to add another part into the workspace, and we'll give it a slightly different color. So just I'll just pick yellow, and once again we will anchor that part, and we'll call this the Finish part. Right, so when the camera animates, it's going to animate from behind the player, and it's going to move to this position while looking at the one in the distance there. So let's move this up a little bit and sort of, whoops, I picked the wrong one. We'll move it sort of up sort of close, and that should, we can probably make it a bit higher if you like, but that should give you an idea and show you that the camera will move from back here. Alright, so we're moving from back here. Alright, so as I said, when we write our script, camera is going to move to this yellow part while focusing down the bottom here on this red part. So let's now script the button, and I'll come up to View and turn our button back on. Open up your local script for your button if it's not already open, and we will write some code. Now, as I said, we're going to make use of the Tween service. So create a variable TS, a Tween service, equals game, get service, and the Tween service. Now we'll create a variable for our camera, which if you have a look, when the game starts, we have a camera in the workspace. So workspace.current camera. will get us the camera as it's running. And we'll need a variable for each of our parts that we created. So finish will be equal to workspace.finishPart, and local lookat will be workspace, whoops, wrong button, workspace.lookatPart. And we'll create a variable for the button, which will be script.parent. And just below this, let's add in our button.event, so mouse button 1 click, and we'll connect to this a function, and that's where we will end up playing our Tween. Alright, so now if you have never used Tween service before, there's a couple of different parts to it. So I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible by starting off by creating the Tween down the bottom here first, and we'll just call it Tween, and it will be equal to Tween service and then a colon create. And you'll notice we get this all of these parameters that we need to add in here. So the first one is the instance. So what is it that we're animating? And in our case, it is the camera. So we can add camera straight in there, followed by a comma. Now, Tween info, if you read through, is to do with how it moves and how it smoothly moves. And we'll deal with that in a minute. But we'll just create a variable in here called info. And the last part here, property table, represents the goal. So where do you want to end up? Or what position or what size or whatever it is, the goal, and that's the keyword over here. What is the goal that you want to get to? So we'll put in here goal. All right, so these don't exist yet, but we're going to create them up above here now. So the first one that we need to look at is info. So we'll create a variable called info, and if you type equals, it's Tween info dot new. Now you've got a whole bunch of things in here as well. So the first one is time. So how long do you want it to take to complete the Tween? And we'll start off with 2, and of course you can experiment with this. Lower number will go quicker and higher number will go slower, of course. Add a comma, easing style. So you'll see we need to enter enum dot easing style, and then you'll get a number of choices here about how the Tween behaves, and you can look through them. As this one says, it overshoots the target, constant speed, bounces multiple times, speed is to determine, so there's a few things that you can use. I'm just going to pick linear, but by all means experiment with that. Add a comma, and then the next one is easing direction. So enum dot easing direction, and you'll see that this is easing, so the style is applied in a forward, reverse, or both. So I'll just pick both in here. Now if we add another comma, you have the option to repeat. So if I wanted it to repeat twice, I could put 2. If I wanted it to repeat forever, I could put -1. All right, and I'll just leave this here for a moment. We're not going to use this, but I'm just showing you what the options are. And then if you add another comma, you get the option to say, do you want it to reverse? So once it's tweened, do you want it to go back in the other way? So you could put in here true or false, depending on what it was. But we don't need these last 2 for this particular tween. So we'll just come back, and so we've only got up to the direction in here. All right, and we'll drop down. So that has taken care of this info part here for creating the tween. So the next part is the goal. So we'll create a table, just an empty table called goal, and we're going to add what we want to do in here. Now, if you've ever done any animation before, the old way or the depreciated way is to use a method called Interpolate. So if you type camera and then Interpolate, you'll see it's crossed out, which means it's been depreciated, but we can add it in anyway. And if you look at the parameters, we've got the end position C frame, which would be our finish C frame, and then the end focus, so that's the lookat.C frame, and then the duration. So we said that was 2, which we've taken care of up here in the information. All right, Now that's the old way, so I'm just putting that in there and we'll comment that out. But I want you to see how this is applied into this goal here. So in this case, what we'll do is say goal.cframe equals cframe.new, and all we need to put in here is the finish.position and the lookat.position. Okay. Now, you might be like, you can see that we've created a C-frame. So if you have just a position, that's a vector 3, which is just, like X, Y, Z. When you have a C-frame, there's two. There's like X, Y, Z, and then over here X1, X2, etc., which is your rotation. So this is a position, and this is the rotation, and that's how it gets handled in here. Now, if you're wondering, well, where does this C-frame come from? Remember that whatever you put into this goal is applied to the object that you are tweening. So in this case, it's a camera, but if you had a part in here, like in the workspace, the goal up here might be goal.brick color equals something, or goal.size might equal something, and that would apply to the part. But because we're dealing with the camera object, then only inside of this goal can you use properties of that object. Right, so hopefully that makes sense. So now that we've created our tween, let's move down to inside of our mouse button. Now when we play or click on this, we want to take control of the camera, because I want to pause the animation at the end, or the tween at the end, before I return the camera back to where it was. So to do that, we'll say camera.cameraType equals enum.cameraType.scriptable. So when you use scriptable, it gives you as a developer control of the camera to do with it as you like. And the next thing that we're going to do is, remember we're moving the camera to this finish part here. So when it gets to that part, the camera is actually going to move through this part, and which will ruin the look. So we'll simply say finish.transparency will equal 1, so that we make it invisible. Then we can play our tween. So tween and a colon, play. And when the tween is finished, so the way you tell if it's finished, you can say tween.completed, and we can connect a function to this. And all we want to do in here is to wait, say, for 3 seconds. And after that, we'll return the camera back to the workspace, so the control of the camera, and we simply say camera.cameraType equals enum.cameraType.custom, and that will give control back to the workspace. So with that, we can give this a test. So come up and click on File and Save, and let's play. Alright, so if you're in the workspace, your game is running and you've got no errors, go ahead and click on the button, and you'll see the camera moves while focusing on this part. It freezes for 3 seconds and then returns the camera back to me. And you can play that over again. Alright, so 3 seconds, and then it moves back to me. So everything is working there as we would expect. And even if I point the camera up in the sky, for example, when I click it, you'll notice it will swing the camera around, move to that position, and focus here. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you in future videos. If you found this video useful, subscribe now. For more information about my online courses, go to mrbrendanross.com.